Remember this game, Vampyr. It was a full-priced release, sort of teased and made me misinterpret what the game was entirely. So when I held back on purchasing at release, just because the reviews are a bit, but I didn't read into them because I didn't want to read too heavy. And the game finally came out on PlayStation Plus, and I thought, oh, I'll give it a go. I thought it would be an open world, old London style, Black Death and gore and gruesome, and you'd be a vampire and you'd have to manage your life and all that sort of stuff. And there'd be maybe some action, leveling up and skill tree and all that jargon. And then when I finally tried it, it's a bloody dating simulator. Basically, you get the most benefit sucking the blood of people that you're friends with, that you know so much about. So you spend the whole game balancing the two. You want to be powerful enough to fight, the evil creatures you have to fight and all that sort of stuff. But you want to keep people alive long enough that when you do finally suck their blood, you get the most out of it. Or you just don't suck their blood because you got to know them so much you became friends. So that's kind of trying to make that dilemma of, these people so much because you have to know so much to get the most out of their blood. But then you don't want to kill them because you know them so much, you know their backstory, you know everything about them, there's so much talking, so much dialogue, you're at the hospital, you're working as a doctor, as a vampire. And the graphics of this little menu thing may look nice, but the actual in-game graphics are pretty average. The facial capture and all that's fine. That's probably the strength of the game, dialogue and face capture and the hospital, but then the combat and things is very, very jank. And the graphics and things around that is quite poor. So the strength of the game is really the dating sim part, and the weakness is everything else. It really sort of made me question the marketing around the game, because it failed to capture what the game actually was. And it was just like, why don't you just come out and say it's a dating sim? I think it would have been better received. And then maybe just cut out more of the combat, because it was just so average anyway. But you do need to prepare for, your big final battle and all that sort of stuff. And the seedy city. But the atmosphere, I think they did a good job, and just the combat and all that is so terrible. And, I made the fatal mistake sucking the blood of the first person I came across, and then, oh no, that's an important character that you should have built up a relationship because they've related to this character, is related to this character, and it's all intertwined, and this giant web of characters intertwined. And I was like, I didn't get the best bang for me blood. So it's kind of... That was when I didn't understand what the game was, and now then I figured it out. I was like, oh. And it sort of sapped my enthusiasm for the game. That it was so falsely presented, the premise. And the character acting stuff, modeling's quite good, main character and that, but it's a totally different game to what I expected. And I anticipated it prior to release as well, because I thought, it's a open world type, vampire game. Great setting, and it's got all this stuff to work with. But it had a lot to work on. But it's sort of, the trepidation held. So you get this with games, and, usually it's good instincts. Sometimes it's bad. That you don't play a series, you don't play a game because you have a feeling about it. And you go, oh, I don't know, I'm a bit suspicious, this one. And then sometimes that turns out to be true in this case, and then sometimes it turns out to be not true in other games. So you may have that suspicion about other titles and go, oh, I don't know about that one. Everyone tells me to play it. I'm like, I don't know. This one's one where no one told you to play it for a reason. But then, if you know what it is and can appreciate the dialogue, extensive dialogue, and sort of just skip over the combat, there is value in it. There is some very well made aspects of the game. There's just a bit of jank around the edges and the combat jank, so it takes away from it. So if anything, they could have redesigned the game. I think if it was purely relationship, and then you cultivate the blood. Or if anything, it was you being a vampire wasn't as central to the story. It was more a relationship sim, but then I found out later on that one of your friends is a vampire who's been cultivating everyone's blood. You could have taken it from different angles. And your historical stuff is, don't worry about that, accuracy and all. Yeah, it's a vampire game. That's fine. But, I don't know, I just wanted to talk about it, because it made me feel a certain way when I found out the truth of the game. And was like, okay, well, I can see the strengths. And then I played a bit more and saw the weaknesses, and I was like, do you want to... You don't fall in love with your food, I think is the way of putting it. If you raise chickens and you're going to eat them, don't get too attached. And this is the sort of premise of the game, is don't get too attached to your food. Otherwise you won't want to drink any blood, and then you're just weak for the whole thing. And yeah, it's a very interesting concept. More interesting as a concept than as a game, to be frank. At times, again, you have to listen to all the dialogue. You can't skip any dialogue. No skipping of dialogue. That's taboo. But yeah, music and things is great. Lots of blood and gore and things, but it's just the combat. Alright, that's enough. So do I recommend playing the game? Only if you know what you're getting into. If you don't know what you're getting into, I think it could be quite disappointing. So if you know coming in this is a dating simulator, then I think you'll approach it in a better manner. But if you didn't know that, then you may fall for the trap that it's a action combat adventure type open world thing, which it's not. So just be careful there. Know what you're getting yourself in for. That's kind of the big part of the disappointment around games, is the failure to meet it. Conflict is the result of failing to meet expectations. So your expectations are really high, you come into a game and it doesn't meet them, you got conflict. You got something to complain about. So just temper those expectations and have sort of more of an understanding of... But then you don't want to know too much about the game. You don't want to surprise. It's kind of a delicate balance in all games. And before you play it and when you do play it, is tempering your expectations and also being suitably, depending on the game's billing, having suitable expectations and going, yes, this is what I was looking for, and being happy about it. So it's kind of it is a delicate thing. And this is probably the biggest part about marketing, that big game companies do fail and they don't understand the consumer and their mindset. And then they think they met the consumer's requests, and then that wasn't enough. They wanted to exceed their requests and exceed their expectations. And yeah, so yeah, that'll do. Vampire, an interesting game. Interesting dating sim where you fall in love with your food. Yeah, it's been Frosty Fire 10. I'm going to keep reflecting on old games and experiences, and I want you to tell me yours. You played the game. What do you think? If you played it. If you didn't play it, if you thought about playing it and chose not to. How'd you come to that conclusion? Because I couldn't explain to you how I came to that conclusion. Just a feeling. Just a gut. Instinct. Yeah. Alright. Like and subscribe. All that jargon. Comment, please. Tell me what you think. I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.